Still intent on marrying Zelda, he took a job at a New York ad agency to prove he could support her.
The whole marriage was contingent on the book.
Yes.
This Side of Paradise was the deal maker.
Scott was obsessed with Zelda and sent her a constant stream of telegrams and letters from New York.
It's dreadfully hard to write so very much. I know you love me, darling, and I love you more than anything in the world, but if it's going to be so much longer, we just can't keep up this frantic writing.
But in June of 1919, she broke off the engagement. I was a failure. Mediocre at advertising work and unable to get started as a writer. Hating the city, I got roaring, weeping drunk on my last penny and went home. Back with his parents in St. Paul, he was determined to rewrite his book. He finished the manuscript and sent it to Scribner's yet again. I was an empty bucket, so mentally blunted by the summer's writing that I'd taken a job repairing car roofs in the Northern Pacific shops. Then, the postman rang. Dear Mr. Fitzgerald, I am very glad, personally, to be able to write to you that we are all for publishing your book.
I am very proud of you. I hate to say this, but I don't think I had much confidence in you at first. It's so nice to know you really can do things.
Over the next 6 months, Scott sold 15 short stories. On March 26, 1920, This Side of Paradise was published. The majority of the reviews were great. The glorious spirit of abounding youth glows throughout this fascinating tale. The first edition of the book sold out in 3 days. Think best to get married Saturday noon. First edition of the book is sold out. 3 days later, they were married. The Fitzgeralds were the talk of New York City. Dorothy Parker remarked,
They both look as though they just stepped out of the sun. Their youth was striking. Everyone wanted to meet them.
What happens when a 23-year-old gets instant fame and money?
Yeah.
They wind up like Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, no, we say
on the front
they're
cover
like
of the tabloids.
America's first rock stars.
They are. They are. What, they're the first. They're the first pop stars.
You know the scenes where they're doing the murder, and there's pictures and there's strings and, you know, the connections? We took Zelda's only novel, Save Me the Waltz. We took Cruise of the Rolling Junk, first like motoring story. We took The Beautiful and Damned, and we took The Great Gatsby, and we found phrases, words, and scenes that they're both talking about the same thing.
And then we match that up with some of the correspondence or some of the essays, like My Lost City, and then the McCabe Diary. And that's where we started to see consistencies in the experience, or Deej and I tried to figure out how that related to what was really happening in Westport.
He and Zelda were drawing from the same sources, too. And that's why you get those correspondences between his writing and hers.
I remember riding in a taxi between very tall buildings under a mauve and rosy sky. I began to bawl because I had everything I wanted and knew I would never be so happy again. Scott was not the only artist in the family. Zelda painted, danced, and even wrote a novel. In Save Me the Waltz, about a young couple, David and his wife, Alabama, Zelda drew heavily on those early, joyful days of marriage.
As soon as David could make arrangements, he sent for her. The judge gave her the trip north for a wedding present. She quarreled with her mother about her wedding clothes. David and Alabama invited their friends to throw oranges into the drum at the plantation and themselves into the fountain at Union Square.
Another thinly veiled chronicle of those early years was described in Scott's second novel, The Beautiful and Damned, drafted in Westport. It was the story of Anthony and Gloria. It was, first of all, a time of discovery. Anthony found that he was living with a girl of tremendous nervous tension and of the most high-handed selfishness. Gloria knew within a month that her husband was an utter coward toward any one of a million phantasms created by his imagination.
Fitzgerald was a magpie. He picked up material everywhere, and he transformed it into fiction, both into his short fiction and into his novels, sometimes from the short stories on into the novel.